When it comes to a lot of games, especially shooters, the philosophy of risk versus reward is baked into the game's design. Take a game like Helldivers 2 for example. If you choose to wear light armor, congratulations! You now have the fastest base speed in the game and the fastest stamina regen out of the other two armor classes. But it comes at the cost of a lower armor rating, which means that the few mistakes you do make, like getting shot or running into explosive, are much deadlier than if you were running a heavier armor in the same scenario. Risk versus reward. Let's go back to Titanfall 2. Another good example of a risk versus reward choice is the decision between Dome Shield and Warp Fall. Dome Shield, being the standard, is the safe option. A 5-second call-in time with your Titan dropping in with an impenetrable Dome Shield, this is great. Unless you troll on the way, you're guaranteed to have full Titan health once you embark and start actually moving. But on the other hand, we have Warp Fall. This kit cuts the call-in time in half, but you don't get the safety cushion of the Dome Shield, so one wrong move and your Titan is toast. So why even remove it? Well, consider that it's 1, a faster deployment, 2, you can crush Titans way more easily on purpose, and 3, well actually that's it. Kinda describes a couple of game series, am I right?
Hey guys, make sure to like and subscribe on this video.
But I mean, I think those two reasons alone are enough to justify a Warp Fall pick. Though when it comes to risk versus reward, there's a set weapon class in the game where sometimes you might just need that little bit of luck.
Transitory segment!
The Grenadier weapon class is home to 4 of the most unique weapons in Titanfall 2, the SMR, the EPG, the Softball, and the Cold War. Unlike the rest of the weapon classes, the Grenadier class is defined by 2 things. First is the explosive splash damage they all deal. Since all the Grenadier weapons do explosive damage, they're the only other weapon type that isn't the anti-Titan category that can deal damage to Titans without hitting their red crit spot. So if you manage to somehow survive long enough to deplete all your anti-Titan ammo, you'll always have a backup to deal Titan damage with a Grenadier. And secondly, Grenadiers are defined by their projectiles. With a few exceptions in the pistol class, most other weapon types consist of hit-scan weapons. If you don't know the difference, basically hit-scan weapons boil down to if your crosshair is on the guy, you'll hit him. Meanwhile, with projectiles, you have to account for other things like travel time, distance, bullet drop, yada yada. But even with these things in common, the way each of these weapons play differs so vastly from one another that, as you'll soon see, every one of these guns? I consider it all to be one great gamble. Starting from the very top, we've got the SMR. Funnily enough, when I first started playing this game, I really hated this weapon. Low ammo count of 20, projectiles, and a slow reload to boot. I thought this weapon just flat out sucked. But in reality, I just suffered from a major skill issue. It was a tough pill to swallow. But regardless, I'm glad I could come out and say it. Now I know earlier I said splash damage defined the Grenadiers, but the SMR splash damage is definitely not the greatest. Granted, you can still kill with its splash damage, but like, no. So regardless, you're still encouraged to hit direct shots like with any other weapon. And oh boy, does this thing hit hard. When it comes to most automatic weapons in this game, a lot of them kill in around 3 to 5 shots, which is pretty standard. The SMR skims this line though, and to kill a pilot, it only takes 2 shots. What this means is that this thing is a beast in close combat. Being able to kill in 2 shots with its decently fast fire rate, which is faster than the Spitfire by the way, means that more often than not, if you're good at connecting your shots, you can outgun pretty much anything in those close spaces, including SMGs. However, it does begin to fall off pretty rapidly once you start to get into those mid to long ranges, since of course, we've got a little bit of integrated RNG with random weapon spread. The ammo economy also makes it so that you'll have to reload pretty often, and that also means you can't really target grunts and such with the utmost efficiency. So what am I supposed to do? Treat this as an SMG side grade? That's boring as hell. Hey man, I agree. So here, let me dial it back a bit. Remember how I told you that all the Grenadier weapons can deal Titan damage without hitting the crit spot? Well, it just so happens that the SMR is the best Grenadier weapon to do this very exact thing. And if you do hit crit spots, you can even outperform your dedicated anti-Titan weapon. But remember, this is a gamble. Facing a Titan head-on as a pilot will usually result in pretty major bodily harm, if I do say so myself. But no need to fear, Reach is here. Okay, so basically you want to equip AWOL. Against pilots, SMR AWOL doesn't really change anything since it's a 2-hit kill regardless. Basically, you're only bringing this thing for cover and for the extra amount of damage against Titans. Because man, just look at this. This is just satisfying to look at, and even without the crit spots, Amped SMR is still going to hurt quite a bit for anybody on the receiving end. For mods, I'm usually running fast mags and tactical. Fast mags I feel are basically a must-have on this weapon. With only 20 missiles per mag, you're going to be reloading so often, and it doesn't really help that the regular SMR reload is pretty slow. Tactical, on the other hand, is a personal preference. After all, with this mod, more kills equals more AWOLs. Though I believe if you're just starting out, the extended mags will probably be a lot better to choose alongside the fast mags, since you can afford to be a bit more lenient with your shots. Notable mention I want to bring up before we move on is the synergy with the Grav Star. Throw it and you can fire and forget for the easy kill. Up next, we've got what I consider the peak of Grenadier weapons. In my eyes, the EPG does it all. It's got one-shot potential, decent splash, a predictable projectile, a good amount of ammo. It's just a jack of all trades. If you're just starting out with a Grenadier class, this would definitely be my go-to pick to get started. In most cases, when you're using this weapon, you're going to be killing people in around 2 shots with splash damage. This splash damage is significant enough that you can shoot this around corners and you'll still get a good effect on the target. However, once you master the projectile on this weapon, you'll be heavily rewarded with instant kill direct one-shots, which is easily the most satisfying part of this weapon. Coming with a base mag of 5 shots, the reload on this weapon is so much more bearable compared to the other Grenadier weapons due to its heavier nature and more efficient ammo usage. When damaging Titans, you do a good enough amount of damage, certainly more than the other 2 weapons that I haven't talked about yet, but still, you can't treat this like the SMR. Most of the time, if you're using this against a Titan, you're just firing pot shots or just using it as a quick finisher. Now, come to think of it, the EPG is just the safest option when it comes to the inherent nature of the Grenadier's gamble. The only thing you really have to gamble here is the projectile, but all the Grenadiers come with that gamble. So how do we best utilize this gun anyways? For mods, I like to run the extended mags in Tactical. Extended mags brings the ammo count from 5 to 8, and Tactical is, well, tactical. Unlike the SMR, I feel like fast mags is pretty optional since the reload time normally isn't that bad, and I often feel like I need the extra 2 shots instead of the faster reload. Next, I would recommend running Phase and Gravity Star, which, I'll be honest, for the EPG and the rest of the Grenadier class, this is what I feel is the optimal loadout 99% of the time. Phase allows you to be so much more lenient when it comes to Grenadiers, it's actually kind of insane. When you phase, it's so much more likely that you're going to be in a more favorable position once it's over since your opponents will be hunting you down. By taking advantage of this, you can predict where the enemy will be for a more favorable angle. You can also hit clutch reloads, and the most obvious benefit of Phase is flat out just avoiding death. Meanwhile, Grav Stars are admittedly a bit of a crutch, but it's great for keeping people in one place so that your sweet and deadly projectiles actually hit their mark. Though the projectile interactions do differ from weapon to weapon, in this case the EPG's energy shot can actually curve quite a bit. And unfortunately, if you're shooting at an angle where this does happen, you're going to end up missing a lot of shots, which you wouldn't have missed if the angle was correct. 2 words: minion farming. When it comes to killing grunts, specters, and stalkers, no other weapon that isn't a Titan weapon even comes close. That's why, in basically all of my Frontier Defense speedruns, you can see that I utilize this for every first wave, because it's just that good. In regular multiplayer though, it has a bit of more of a learning curve, which comes in the form of this weapon's gamble. If you haven't deduced it already from the gameplay footage, the softball has a delay before the projectile actually explodes. This delay is significant enough that you can die before the explosion has a chance to go off if your opponent is shooting you fast enough. The softball also has projectile drop, so not only do you need to protect the usual stuff like distance, but now you also have to account for height. So as a smooth-brained monkey that is unable to think in the 3rd dimension, I have to employ the secret ancestral technique of spamming my fire button in the general direction of my enemy and praying that I get a good stick. It's for this reason that I consider fast mags and extended mags a hard requirement for this gun. Without both, the softball feels sluggish to reload one by one, and since you'll want to be minion farming with this gun, you're going to be shooting at anything you see that isn't a Titan or a Reaper. And I say anything besides a Titan or Reaper because, unfortunately, the damage the softball does to those guys is not worth the trouble. But in the end, if you don't suck as much as I do, you can just run fast mags and tactical. As for the interaction with the Grav Star, don't expect the softball to have the most synergy with it. You'd think that shooting the softball into the star with a person in it would allow the balls to stick and explode on the person inside, but they don't for some reason. They only explode when the Grav Star itself explodes, so you'll have to wait for the detonation for the kill. This window of opportunity gives the pilot inside an ample amount of time to kill you if you're careless, and it also gives them more time to grapple out or phase shift out if they're running either of those 2 tacticals. Now I know this video is called the Grenadier Gamble, meaning that whenever you pick up one of these weapons, you're gonna be rolling the dice. But all the other weapons pale in gambling potential when it comes to the Cold War. This weapon is truly it's something. Depending on who you ask, this gun seems to be a mismatch of skill, no skill, and most importantly, luck. To start, let's talk about what this gun actually does. On trigger pull, you'll start a charge up animation to which then the Cold War will spit out 4 projectiles with a decent splash radius and damage. Compared to literally any other weapon design in the game, this one takes the cake for being the most unique. You're basically carrying a handheld mortar, and so we have this weapon's first gamble, the charge up time. Like with the softball, there's a slight delay for when you're actually going to be dealing damage. In a game like Titanfall 2, where the time to kill is often a blink and you'll miss it type of deal, having to deal with a charge up time can be tough. The second gamble is the projectiles themselves. Our totally favorite game mechanic, weapon spread, is back to rear its ugly head. In close range, this effect barely matters at all, since the splash AoE will do its thing, but that killing potential severely drops off at longer distances because of the spread, and the fact that this weapon comes with bullet drop as well. And oh yeah, did I mention you have to hit all 4 splash shots to get that one burst pilot kill? If you don't, well, you're probably dead if you try to go for that second burst. Oh, and also, did you know that you're encouraged to go for these splash shots? Like, direct hits do not benefit you at all. If all 4 Cold War projectiles hit a pilot, they'll still be alive. This part of the weapon is so genuinely baffling. Ah yes, give me a projectile weapon that doesn't reward me if I happen to be more accurate with it. What the hell? But hey, if we're talking about a real gamble, what if I told you that this weapon's performance is entirely dependent on the maps and the people you get in your lobbies? Ooh. Yeah, it's pretty much a given. So you know how the Cold War operates in splash damage? Well, we can't do splash damage if there's no surfers to splash. And going for direct hits is out of the question, which means the ultimate counter to this weapon is pressing the spacebar to jump. Basically, the worse your opponents are at movement, the better the Cold War is gonna be. Because of this, you'll have games where you'll feel like, wow, this is the best gun in the game, to,
Man, I think I'm just gonna kill myself.
as much as people will deny it, the skill expression in this gun is pretty low since it boils down to shooting the floor, and really the only thing you can do with it is hope and pray. For mod attachments, you'll absolutely want to run tactical, since using something like stim or phase more often can help fill in the gaps between firing this weapon. And now between fast mags and extended mags, you could honestly go for either. I personally lean towards fast mags though, since the regular reload is a bit too long, and ideally, I'm going to be reloading after every kill since you only have 3 bursts available per mag. So there you have it, those are all the Grenadier weapons. When it comes down to it, projectile weapons in my eyes will always be fun to mess around with, and even if people complain, the Grenadier class has to be my absolute favorite out of all the bunch. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to support me, make sure to like, subscribe, and if you want extra benefits, get a YouTube membership. You can also interact with me in the Discord link in the description as well. Anyways, this has been Rage, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.